Should GMO crops be used? First, we'll be looking at this question through the scientific lens. The term GMO is a broad one, and it can refer to any organism that is genetically modified. However, in this presentation, we will be specifically talking about GMO crops. Any crop can be genetically modified, and there are many different species of crops that exist today. However, in the U.S., the most common genetically modified crops are corn, cotton, and soybeans. There are three main methods used for genetic modification. The first being mutation breeding, which allows an organism to be attacked by harmful rays in order to mutate proteins. There is also transfecting or transducing, which allows a virus to inject a desired gene into the DNA of an organism. The last method is the use of CRISPR-Cas9 technology, which is by far the most effective of these methods. Crops that are altered by any of these methods can be classified as GMOs. There have also been advancements with GMOs and allergies. GMO crops can be modified to not have proteins that commonly cause allergies. This advancement would be able to rid all crops of common allergens and make food safer for people. Although GMOs would greatly benefit people with allergies, there is a downside to altering the allergenicity of certain crops. GMO crops can accidentally be modified with a certain gene from one crop that can cause another crop to cause allergic reactions when it previously didn't. Although there is not much more risk of transferring allergies by genetic engineering as compared to traditional breeding, there is still the potential risk. Because of this, there are restrictions that prevent foods that are known to cause allergies, such as the Brazil nut, from being used for GMO purposes. There also hasn't been any conclusive data that GMOs have a negative effect on human health, but there have been a lot of positive things that have come from GMO crops. These crops can not only be modified to be resistant to pests, but they can also be engineered to have healthy benefits. These crops can be engineered to have increased levels of isoflavones, which help lower cholesterol, to have increased oleic acids, so meats and milk have less saturated fats, and add a certain peptide to fruits in order to reduce tooth decay. All these good things come from the use of GMO crops, and this means that from a scientific perspective, GMOs should be used.
Next, I'll be analyzing our question through the social-cultural lens. It is vastly important to continue the use of genetically modified organisms within our world, and particularly within the crop industry. Many common household products are created by or affected from GMOs. For example, cotton clothing is most often derived from genetically modified cotton fiber, according to the Food and Drug Administration. GMOs have also recently been used in the production of medicine, such as insulin, which is vital for patients who suffer from diabetes. The most obvious example of everyday products that are genetically modified is food. More than 90% of all corn, wheat, and soybeans planted in the United States are genetically engineered, according from data from the Department of Agriculture. One aspect of GMOs that can be greatly improved is the amount of information and resources that are provided on this controversial topic. GMOs and genetic engineering are accepted as safe and useful by the consensus of the scientific community. This is a clear and long-standing agreement by nearly all scientists. However, GMOs have shown extreme promise in addressing major challenges of the 21st century, including world hunger, global warming, and even the prevalence of diet-related diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. However, when researching, I found in almost every study, public opinion was unclear, whether that be from lack of information or simple misinformation. A study done by Matthew Turbino of Gettysburg College found three main falsehoods that manifest about GMOs. The first is essentialism, meaning that things must be done in a certain way in order to preserve them. Next is teleological and intentional thinking, and finally, disgust. These are only the starting points to an opinion that is likely to end in the result that GMOs are dangerous and immoral. The lack of resources and proper education about GMOs actively allows these falsehoods to manifest, and the only way to improve this is by spreading the truth of GMOs.
By investigating the economic lens, I have found how beneficial GMOs are not only to our farms, but also to our economy. GMO crops are cheaper, faster growing, use less chemicals, and can be modified to withstand harsher environments. All these factors lead to greater quantities of produce to be sold at a cheaper price while still dramatically increasing farmers' incomes. Crops can be engineered to be resistant to insect damage, which means farmers no longer need to purchase pesticides. Pesticides are a mix of chemicals that farmers spray on their crops to deter insects and increase crop outcomes. GMO crops are engineered to do the same thing, but without the need to purchase and spray these harmful chemicals. In the graph published by PLUS ONE, the benefits are made evident. Even though there's a 3.3 total production cost increase, this is combated by the 68% increase in farmer profit and 21% increase in crop yield. Another alteration that can be made to crops is making them herbicide resistant. Herbicides are chemicals that are sprayed on fields to reduce weed growth. These chemicals are harmful to crops and can damage or even kill them. Making produce tolerant to these chemicals will increase the output for the season and reduce damaged crops. It also allows farmers not to till the plants, maintaining soil health and reducing fuel and labor efforts, ultimately saving them money. By making crops herbicide resistant and resistant to insect damage, the income gain has been $150.3 billion in the years 1996 to 2014. There are many other alterations that can be made to these crops to help them grow, stay fresh, and taste better. These alterations lead to an increase in crops, which starts the domino effect. With more crops, the farmers can sell more of their produce at a cheaper price while simultaneously still bringing in more money for themselves. These economic gains are huge and only strengthen our hypothesis that GMOs should continue to be utilized.
Looking at the use of GMOs through the futuristic lens, there are many benefits that can be made from GMOs research and development, including political stability because of reduced famines, as well as increased crop yields because of new techniques and technologies that result in more efficient crop growth. There is a strong correlation between famine and internal conflict within countries, especially those in underdeveloped countries with limited access to genetically modified foods. As you can see from this graph from National Geographic, there are fewer GM crops grown in underdeveloped countries. This is because their agriculture industries have not yet reached the level of production and efficiency as first world countries. Droughts, floods, and extreme temperatures caused by climate change have resulted in worldwide decreased crop yields, especially in underdeveloped countries. The strain on agricultural production in a country results in famine and economic stress on both the government and its citizens. These conditions are centrifugal forces that cause internal strife and can lead to violence. This correlation can be seen in the current conflicts in Syria and Sudan, as they both occurred after a series of droughts that caused massive crop failure. The reason genetically modified crops can increase crop yield is because scientists can use data and genetic editing to change the way crops are more resistant to harsh growing conditions. This researcher, Jianyang Hao, at Tennessee Laboratories is using a system of genetic editing to transfer the photosynthesis system of agave, a desert plant, to traditional cash crops and food crops. In turn, this makes crop growth more efficient and increases yields worldwide. Although there are some disadvantages of using GMOs, the overall benefits outweigh the potential negatives. In conclusion, GMOs should continue to be used and researched throughout the world for agricultural use. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions. Stella, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Well, at first, before we kind of collaborated together, we had some overlap, especially with topics like pest resistance. But once we got together, we decided to kind of go our own routes from there and kind of choose more different topics within our different classes.
Okay. Sam, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Juliet's findings.
At the beginning of our research, our group consensus was pretty clear. We went into it thinking that, or at least I did, thinking that GMOs were bad due to a lot of the misinformation that I've previously talked about. However, Juliet was the first one in our group to, after looking at her research, to say, hey, you know what, you guys, I actually think that GMOs have a very positive impact, and it allowed us to look into different places that we wouldn't have and change our conclusion to this.
Thank you. Juliet, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
Okay, so I'd for sure say the scientific lens was the most helpful because, like Samantha talked about, there's a lot of misinformation out there concerning GMOs, and our original hypothesis is that they were like bad, and that but through the scientific lens, like we learned like what they really are, and like that they are, the misconceptions aren't true.
Okay, thank you. Monica, what's an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports you decided to exclude from your team presentation, and why did you decide to exclude it?
So Samantha initially had information on the cultural belief of foods in supermarkets and that effect from GMOs, and we decided to exclude that because we mainly wanted to focus on crop growth specifically and not the buying and selling in like the industry of supermarkets.
Okay, thank you.